Welcome into Four Down Territory. I am Kyle Madson, the managing editor of Niners Wire. Joining me, as always, Doug Farrar, the managing editor at touchdownwire.com. And Doug, 3 weeks down. I'm thrilled with how the season's gone so far. I'm having so much fun watching.
Because you're not with the Denver Broncos.
That's a very good point. Yeah, not a member of the Denver Broncos, at least not yet. I'm feeling better by the day about my chances of actually making that team. So fingers crossed for an open tryout soon. Let's talk about another team.
Baby.
Yeah, let's talk about another team that's having a slow start to their year, and that's the Chicago Bears. They've had the kind of week that's hard to compare to really like any NFL team has had since maybe Bobby Petrino ditching the Falcons. Was that back in 2007? Yeah. So Justin Fields has a press conference. Let's run through this. Justin Fields has a press conference where he throws his coaches under the bus. But then he had another press conference, an impromptu press conference, where he said, that's not actually what I meant to say. Then defensive coordinator Alan Williams leaves the team under very mysterious circumstances. You get $100,000 worth of lawn equipment stolen from the facility that may or may not have belonged to the club. And then on Sunday, when they finally get to forget all that and just play a game, they get blown out 41-10 in a game that was not even that close in a loss to the Chiefs. Fields was also allowed to finish the game after he was very clearly concussed after taking a shot to the head from, I believe it was Willie Gay.
It was.
So that happened early in the fourth quarter, and then he finishes the game. So I don't want to bash on Matt Eberflus here after such a bad week, but if you're the Bears, do you start making some very serious changes right now, or is there some kind of benefit to staying the course?
Yeah, Willie Gay, and he was doing the peanut punch. He wasn't trying to hit Fields in the head.
He wasn't punching anybody in the face.
Just going for the ball, and Fields moved. But yeah, Fields got up like he's been shot in a Western, and they let him back in because, independent neurological consultant.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to DJ Moore, by the way, for being a good teammate there.
Right.
Grabbing his guy and get him off the field.
Good Lord, someone had to be. God, what a mess. The thing about Eberflus is that what really has me thinking that it's time to move on is how bad Chicago's defense is. And Eberflus is a defensive coach. He's been given a pass on that because the offense has been an absolute garbage fire. But here are some relevant stats from the Eberflus era, courtesy of the always awesome Ollie Connolly. Through the Matt Eberflus era, they are dead last in EPA per play, dead last in dropback EPA per play, dead last in pressure rate with a 4-man rush, dead last in sacks per game, and dead last in yards conceded per coverage snap. Is that bad?
That's bad. I think that's bad.
Yeah, the whole thing is an embarrassment that makes the Matt Nagy seem reasonable, and there's no reason not to make a major change now, except that they don't really have anyone else on the staff with NFL head coaching experience. But I don't know how you keep this going, especially after the ways in which the field situation was mishandled on the field. I don't think this guy has control of his own team. And it's funny that we were talking about the Cardinals tanking, and we're going to discuss it later because they're clearly not. This is as close to a tank, an inadvertent tank where the whole franchise just falls apart that I've ever seen. I think you need to sweep it out and just start over for the good of the people that are going to be there, i.e. the players.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that. Maybe they could just call a former Bears offensive lineman, see what Kyle Long's up to, and just hire him. Just do the Colts. Just do the Colts move. Yeah, Kyle's great.
I did a piece on him back when he was at Oregon. Just an awesome guy.
Yeah, terrific guy. Maybe Olin Kreutz is available too. Just do that. So here's the part where I advocate for keeping Eberflus.
Okay.
Because there's two outcomes if they keep him. One, maybe it works. Everything kind of comes together. Justin Fields starts to progress, and the continuity helps Chicago's defense finish the season on a high note. And then they get another offseason to build out a competitive roster, although I think it's a little bit TBD on if this front office is capable of doing that. Then there's option two, where it continues to be an unmitigated disaster. Chicago's in the running for the number one pick, and this is probably the more likely and maybe more preferred outcome. They ride it out with Eberflus and Fields, and if it doesn't work, they're in a really advantageous spot to kind of shift gears next offseason at head coach and at quarterback, and they can kind of wipe the slate clean. But they could also fire him and hope for one of those same two options because of what you just laid out. They don't really have any NFL head coaches on their staff. So I think there's something to be said for continuity in the NFL, though. So hanging on to the coach might just be prudent to avoid another year of a coaching search and more turmoil. And Maybe you set the team back even further than it is right now. I don't know. I'm trying here. But just in case they move on, though, can they please step into 2023 and hire an offensive-minded head coach next time, please?
Well,
please.
The Chiefs have an offensive. Oh no, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't
Sorry,
know how
Bears
they
fan.
don't.
I
I don't
didn't want
know.
to go there. I didn't want to go there.
I don't know.
The area of Bears wire is going to kill me with her bare hands now. Yikes.
With her bare hands, nice. No, I just, yeah, you know, I don't know how they keep going with Eberflus in the direction both sides of the ball are going. This is just not. It's not a serious football team right now.
No, it's not.
And when that happens, you got to make major changes. So,
and I get that if you do that, like you fire Frank Reich, all of a sudden Jeff Saturday is your coach, and you're just, the search firm turns into a debacle, and I get it, but.
But you start losing players and losing fans if you're just riding it out and getting smoked every week while the team appears to be going backwards. I just, if you're going to be a serious organization, you have to make changes when things get this bad.
Yeah, back in the 70s, San Diego Chargers hired an interim head coach by the name of Don Coryell, third week of the season. I'm just saying,
pretty good coach. Pretty good coach.
Pretty good hire there.
Moving to an offense that really works.
Oh my God.
Dude. South Beach, man. So on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins tied for the third most points in pro football history when they stomped the Broncos 70-20. It feels like a typo. I saw it on the ticker, like the Fox or Red Zone ticker or whatever all day yesterday, and 70 just looked fake every time it came up. So
and it wasn't that close. They could have done more.
Yeah, they got their 70th point with 8 minutes left. And they put their backups in well before that. It's crazy.
They put in the quarterback, and they were running the ball.
Yeah, and it's still like Devon Achane, good player. They put up the second most yards in pro football history with 726. It's behind only the 1951 Los Angeles Rams. Miami's now recorded 1,651 total yards of offense this season in 3 games. That's insane. That's the most in NFL history through the first 3 games of a season. They're the only team in pro football history to score 10 offensive touchdowns in 1 game. And only the 1968 Cowboys scored more points in the first 3 games of a season than the Dolphins, 130. So, all of those stats in mind, and, keeping in mind that recency bias may play a part in this, is this the best offense you've ever seen in the NFL, Doug?
Yeah, by the way, that's 726 yards. I was looking this up today. There are 2 teams this year, the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets, who do not have 726 yards in the entire season.
Oof.
Is this the best offense we've ever seen? I think it's as good as any I've ever seen, and it's sustainable. This is not going away. I did a long tape piece over at Touchdown Wire this morning. I just want to look at all the concepts, and when I got the tape, it was like, all right, here we go. This was the breakfast buffet, and it was everything I hoped it would be. There's no real answer to stop them, Kyle. What the Dolphins did to the Broncos in the run game, 350 yards and 5 touchdowns on 43 carries, should scare the living bejesus out of every defensive coordinator in the league who does not work for the Dolphins. Remember that Mike McDaniel was Kyle Shanahan's run game coordinator. You know this because you're there from 2017 through 2020, and you start to get the idea. So you got those 2 guys in a room for 4 years devising the most evil run concepts in the NFL. And then McDaniel attaches it to this unholy vertical passing game. And it's just like, they will throw every run concept in the book at you. And they did in this game because they didn't have Jalen Waddle. He was out with a concussion. So, their use of motion misdirection rivals Shanahan's, needs the best run designer in the NFL. Now you take that run game again and attach it to a passing game that forces defenses to play back, often in 2 deep coverage, and with at least one safety backpedaling at the snap because the receiver speed is too terrifying to do anything else. What I've seen from the Dolphins this season has me thinking they are a truly evil combination of the Tyreek Hill Chiefs with the 49ers run game. And I have no idea how you are possibly going to stop it. They're not going to put up 70 every week, but stopping it consistently, I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, for me, it's flat out the best offense I've seen. And this is no disrespect to the Bill Walsh 49ers of the 80s and 90s. and the Peyton Manning Broncos and the '07 Patriots. But to me, the difference is those teams all had great players and great quarterbacks, and they were great for their own reasons. But this Dolphins team is not only on the cutting edge of modern offense because of Mike McDaniel, one of the brightest offensive minds in the game, and I and a lot of other people have believed that well before they scored 70 points in a game. Like, that's why the Dolphins hired him. But it's equipped to run a modern offense at a level that teams I just don't think are ready to compete with. So Miami is just like a little bit different to me. Like, Peyton Manning was just individually unbelievable in 2013. Like, there are some good skill position players, but I genuinely, it's like Demaryius Thomas, and then I can't, off the top of my head, think of any other players on those teams. Like, I'm sure if I sat here and thought about it, I could. With the Tom Brady Patriots, I know it's Wes Welker, I know it's Randy Moss, but I mean, what this Dolphins team is like just a little bit different with the amount of speed they have at the skill positions. It's not something that defenses can really prepare for. And we get so wrapped up in X's and O's, and those things matter a lot as you break down beautifully on Touchdown Wire and on X's and O's and all that. But sometimes to me, football is easy as just being bigger and faster than the dudes across from you. And Miami is always going to be faster than the dudes across from them while also working in a scheme led by one of the game's brightest offensive minds. So I think this Miami team is going to change the way that teams play offense and the way they evaluate players really on both sides of the ball. And for now, I just don't know how anybody gets ahead of them. Like, I genuinely, I don't have a great answer for, hey, this team's going to have you beat schematically. And also, just in case you do figure them out, they're just going to be faster than you. And
yeah. There's so many things to unpack because the two deep stuff, I mean, the Broncos tried that. They played 2-man. They played cover 6. The 54-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill, which everyone's talking, well, why was he so open? Because he ran it deep over, and the deep safety was like, I have to go to depth, which was like the end zone. So he ran that over, and the other safety clinched down on the intermediate route. I mean, it was over. And Sean Payton said today, Monday, basically, if you make any mistakes with these guys, it's over. Like, any single mistake, it's over. The greatest show on turf Rams were like that because they were so fast and they just went for it. And we've all seen this. Like, you'll get a size guy or a speed guy in an offense, and then, he's a hammer, but nobody wants to use him because they're looking for a chainsaw as opposed to a hammer. The Dolphins sold out on speed, and they're using all of these guys. And that's the remarkable thing. They are going full bore, bullet train, million miles an hour all the time. And what's really fascinating, and the more I got into the Broncos game, was the run concepts. And I'm like, yeah, this is Shanahan, but with even more eye candy. Good luck.
Yeah, man. I have no idea. And maybe somebody figures it out, and by the end of the year, they look more mortal. But as of the end of week 3, I'm not super convinced that that's going to happen. But
just to go back to like when Patrick Mahomes had all those problems last season with the too high stuff, because they didn't really have a credible run game until Isaiah Pacheco became a thing. The Dolphins come off the bus with a run game that will force you out of too deep, and a passing game that will force you back into it.
Right. It feels impossible. It feels like you're guessing. Like, you just kind of have to guess as a defensive coordinator and hope you run into one.
Tighter and tighter, and I don't know.
Yeah, I got nothing. So on Sunday night against the Steelers, Raiders head coach Josh McDaniels made the decision to kick a field goal down 23-15 with 3:15 left in the game. A Steelers penalty negated the field goal try that they made, by the way, and gave the Raiders a new set of downs. Great. Then, after an unsuccessful 3-play sequence, the Raiders went to the field goal decision again with 2:25 left in the game.
Yes.
Still down 8, mind you.
Score's the same.
Same score. Same score. Nothing changed. So McDaniels goes, Daniel Carlson, their kicker, makes a field goal again. That gave the Raiders 18 points to Pittsburgh's 23. Quick math, still down 5. That's how the game ended. After the game, McDaniels said that his team would need another possession regardless of whether they kicked the field goal or not, which seemed to betray the fact that the Raiders would have tied the game with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. So per OptaStats, Since the 2-point conversion was adopted in 1994, the Raiders are the only team to attempt a field goal in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter when down by exactly 8 points with less than 5 yards to go for a first down or touchdown. So was this an example of a coaching brain cramp, or was this an indictment of McDaniels and his own offense?
I actually understand exactly what he was doing, and the only thing I would criticize is that at that point, if you have no faith in your quarterback, you put another quarterback in as Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell or whoever.
Sure.
But he had no belief in Jimmy Garoppolo at that point. He knew exactly what he was doing. Garoppolo had 2 passing attempts on the Raiders' drive in question at the Steelers' 8-yard line. Both were wild incompletions. There was an easy gimme swing pass to Devontae Adams that he just flat out missed to the left, and a helium ball to Jacoby Myers on a pressure that Myers would have had to jump into the stands to catch, like section 132, and hey, it's my ball, which would have been obviously out of bounds. So those plays both happened after the Steelers penalty, and the second one was on third down. The next play was a field goal. I am by no means the president of the Josh McDaniels fan club, but what else was he supposed to do? And now with Garoppolo in the concussion protocol after that game, so he's playing whatever part of the game concussed. So we go back to that whole thing, like, where are these independent neurological consultants again? We need to get one of these guys on 4-down territory and have them ask some questions for us.
Yeah, man.
But you can double down on that sentiment of McDaniel saying, I have no belief that my offense can do this. And, criticize him all you want. He's thinking we get 3 here. Maybe we come back. Now, the Raiders defense doesn't really, it's not like the Raiders defense is great either. He's kind of stuck either way. It's funny because everyone's criticizing Brandon Staley for going for it on 4th down, and now they're criticizing it gets a little out of hand. But my point is, and I wrote about this today, based on the situation, based on what had happened in the fourth quarter and everything leading up to that drive, I can get 3 points or I can get no points. He had no faith in Garoppolo's ability to get that ball in the end zone, because the thing is, everything's compressed, and you know this, Kyle, because again, you're there. And with Jimmy, the middle of the field is always closed. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I get it. I don't know what other options he had.
So my pushback against that would be, okay, you make the field goal, you get a stop. Now you have to go further to get a touchdown that you didn't think you could get from 6 yards away.
Right.
So why not just go? It's a mess. But I agree with you. I think McDaniels had tunnel vision on a field goal because he didn't trust either Garoppolo or the offense as a whole, or maybe a little bit of both. So his thought process at that point was focused solely on whether his defense could get a stop or maybe a turnover. So the first field goal, to me, didn't make a ton of sense, but it would have been more justifiable given their 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. And okay, that makes sense. But once you accept the penalty and you take the 3 points off the board, when you're already in a fight against the clock, when you accept that penalty, the field goal is no longer on the table for you. That's okay. That's really good. But then just take your points and save the time if you think that you're going to kick a field goal anyway eventually. So I think he got so focused on kicking a field goal, the first one, that he wasn't ready to make any other decision after the penalty. So I think that's born from everything you just laid out with his mistrust of Garoppolo, and it's hard to blame him. And it raises the question of why they brought him in to begin with at the money that they gave him, and that's a whole other thing. So this is just kind of a disaster, this decision making. I think it's a reflection of where that team is at. And that sequence on Sunday Night Football was just kind of a perfect encapsulation of their ineptitude to this point of the year. All right, let's move on to 4th down here and wrap this up. So through 3 weeks of the 2023 NFL season, Doug, tell us about one thing in the league that you don't think is getting nearly enough attention.
Kyle, the Cleveland Browns defense is absolutely preposterous.
Yeah.
And if Deshaun Watson could maybe not stink about 25% less, these guys would be unstoppable. What the Browns have put together on the other side of the ball under new defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is pretty ridiculous. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, and we're doing this right before Monday night, but I'm pretty confident in these rankings either way. The Browns rank first in net yards per passing attempt allowed at 3.5. The NFL average is 5.9. They've allowed 14 first downs in the passing game. Per team, it's 32.2. They've allowed 2.8 yards per rushing attempt. The NFL average is 4.1. They've allowed 1 passing touchdown. The NFL average is 3.8. From the fronts to the coverages, the Browns have been the NFL's best defense overall. You may have seen that on Sunday. The Titans were rolling 1 and 2 tight ends to Myles Garrett's side of the formation just to give some kind of relief. By the way, it didn't work. Garrett had 4 sacks and 9 total pressures. But the difference this year is it's not just about Garrett. They have guys everywhere. Zadarius Smith has been an absolute monster, and they're starting to get contributions. And this is a sign of good coaching. They're getting contributions out of lesser guys like Maurice Hurst, Alex Wright. Everything's just coming together. And on the back end, because Schwartz is so good at dialing up covered concepts that look like one thing and then post-snap turn into something very much else. They're matching coverage to pressure as well as any team in the league. And again, if they can just have their offense be functional, watch out, because that defense is playing at it's almost like the Dolphins offense, where when it's that, it's time to watch that particular tape, you're getting excited. So that's one thing I think we need to pay more attention to as the season progresses.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. The Browns defense is pretty unbelievable, and they're super fun to watch. I love a defense that's like you actively like watching them play football.
Yep.
And with that pass rush, and like you said, in that coverage unit, they are I think my favorite defense to watch. I want to talk about teams that are not going to be necessarily in the playoff hunt. I don't think the Texans and Cardinals are terrible. And so the Texans go into Jacksonville in week 3 and beat them. They beat the Jags. They were better. And I think DeMeco Ryans is doing a really nice job as a head coach. CJ Stroud looks awesome. I believe he was your QB1 in this draft.
Yes.
And he's very much looked the part. And I think the Texans are going to be a really, really tough out for a lot of teams this year in a way that we maybe didn't expect. And then the Cardinals come to mind because they beat Dallas in week 3, 28-16. And there was this sentiment of how did the Cowboys lose to the Cardinals? And I get it. They were 12.5 point favorites. They should have won the game. But it's not like the Cardinals have been abominable. They were right there with Washington in week 1 in D.C., mind you. And then they were all over the Giants for 40 minutes of their week 2 game.
Their pass rush is absolutely for real. They have
it's very good. Dennis Garrett can play. Victor Dimukeje can play. That's a legitimate, very good pass rushing duo. And then Jonathan Gannon's doing a really nice job with that defense. And then Joshua Dobbs made some really nice throws in week 3. He's making things happen with his legs. You had James Conner in there, and Hollywood Brown is suddenly viable. Michael Wilson, the rookie from Stanford, had a couple of big plays. And all of a sudden, like I said, I don't think the Cardinals are going to go win 10 games or something crazy like that. But I think they're going to be a team that we kind of look at by the end of the year and go, oh, they weren't as awful as we all anticipated. So I think that's the case for the Texans. I think it's the case for the Cardinals. Yeah. And when they start knocking some of these teams off, I think we need to stop talking about it like, oh, wow, they lost to that awful Cardinals team. Like, no, I think they can play some. So those two teams, shout out to them.
Gannon's really kind of awkward speech about the fire in your belly and being on the bus. Maybe it's actually working.
He's still a weirdo. Don't get it twisted. Well, Jonathan Gannon's still a whole weirdo.
Awkward speech, let's put it that way. We don't know him. He might be. I mean, we're weirdos, so
no shade. I'm definitely a weirdo.
We're a couple of balls on video, and we still don't know why. But yeah.
No, Jonathan Gannon's doing a very nice job for sure. So shout out to the Cardinals and Texans for each getting their first win in week 3. That'll wrap it up for 4 Down Territory this week. Make sure to tune in next week as we'll be breaking down week 4 NFL action. That's Doug. I'm Kyle. See y'all next week.
Thanks, everyone.